Good morning, and welcome to Redeemer Lutheran Church. I'm Pastor Gary Lodeholt. Last week, I reached a milestone. On Friday last week, I presented the 1,000th episode of Pastor Gary Live. These were started in the early days of the pandemic as a way to keep connected during our COVID-enforced isolation. At the time, 1,000 episodes never crossed my mind. But now that we have reached 1,000, what next? Today we stand on the threshold of a new beginning, something like New Year's Day, with the gift of time stretching out before us. We can put the old away and begin anew. With that in mind, it seemed to me that this would be a good week to look at new beginnings in the Bible. And while one thing we learned last week was that the word thousand is mentioned a lot in the Bible, there may be even more new beginnings. New beginnings happen over and over in the Bible, and we might rightly think about God as the God of new beginnings. In fact, new beginnings may be at the heart of grace. The story of Abraham is found in the appropriately named book of Genesis. You see, the word Genesis means beginning, and over in Genesis, God does new beginning after new beginning. About 20 years ago, I was teaching my weekly Bible study here at Redeemer, and we decided to do a study of Genesis. I had never delved deeply into Genesis before, and pretty quickly I discovered a rich and meaningful book which told the story of God giving new beginnings to God's people. What was so powerfully striking, however, was one particular verse in chapter 11. There was a long list of Abraham's ancestors, and finally it came down to Abraham and mentioned his wife, Sarai. That led to a devastating sentence. Now Sarai was barren. She had no children. In a day where one lived on through their children, this was the ultimate dead end. The line of Adam through Noah and down to Abraham had come to an end. And maybe this is a good time to remember Noah. In the time of Noah, things had gotten so bad that God chose to bring an end to everything, saving only Noah and his family to begin again. And God promised that there would never be an ending like that again. Only now, there is a different kind of ending. A dead end, if you will. Sarai was barren. She had no children. There is no future, no hope for anything more, nothing ahead. And then chapter 12 begins. In a place where there is no hope for a future, God makes a new beginning with a promise of a child and a place for two old people. And even though it couldn't be believed, they dared to believe. And even from that moment, it took a long time, they believed and the promise was fulfilled. They had a place. They had a child. They had a future. They had a new beginning. Then, as we continued our study, we saw over and over throughout the story of Genesis how the activities of people would come to a dead end, and how God would then do a new beginning in love and grace. Interestingly, the next book of the Bible that weekly Bible study focused on was Revelation. We moved from the very first book of the Bible to the last book. We marveled at John's extraordinary, awe-filled vision of wonder, being amazed at the creatures, the bombast, the grandeur, and the crashing sounds that John described. We talked about how Christians in that day were under persecution and threat of death, and how all of this was code language to urge them to hang on to their faith in a difficult and dangerous world, because in the end Christ wins, and with him so do we. That's the heart of what Revelation is about. So we made our way through cymbals and trumpets and beasts and all manners of chaos until we came to the very end. There in chapter 21, after all that has gone on, God finally appears, seated on the throne, and from the throne God utters his first words in the book. See, I am making all things new. And suddenly there we were again, talking about Sarai and dead ends and God bringing about new beginnings. From the first book of the Bible to the last, God is the God of new beginnings. That's a powerful message for us, a powerful hope for us amidst our own world of dead ends. When all our human efforts have failed, things are not over. God has yet to be heard from, and God is the God of new beginnings. Our old world becomes new in God's love and grace. Dead ends become avenues of fresh opportunity. Perhaps the most compelling example is Jesus on the cross. Talk about a dead end. Jesus is dead. The end. As those disciples on the road to Emmaus said, we had hoped, but now their hope was gone. But God did a new beginning, and Jesus lives. Hope is restored. We have a God of love. We have a God of grace. We have a God of new beginnings. Thanks for watching, and remember to let this day belong to God.